Today, we take you through one of South Asia's most fraught and underreported conflicts, with new dimensions following the United States' decision to officially designate the Balochistan Liberation Army or BLA and its armed wing, the Majid Brigade, as foreign terrorist organizations. This dramatic policy shift does not just mark a new era in US counterterrorism but reshapes the strategic chessboard in the region, drawing in major powers, resource races, human rights debates, and the ghosts of past and present violence. Hello, I'm Gunjan Handa, and let's get into it. For most of the last 2 decades, the United States maintained a studied distance from the Balochistan issue. Early US responses to attacks by BLA focused on condemning violence, but consistently stopped short of backing Pakistan's demands to criminalize or target the insurgency internationally. Diplomats worried publicly about Balochistan's volatile situation, yet, in congressional briefings and official communiques, references to human rights, autonomy, or resource sharing surfaced more often instead of the terms like terrorism. This changed radically under the Trump administration, and more so in the past year, as Washington moved closer to Islamabad at a time when relations with India soured over trade and as the regional contest with China deepened. Pakistani leaders cheered the announcement. General Asim Munir declared it a victory in the long battle against militants. And Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi hailed US partnership as key to ending anti-state conspiracies. This alignment echoes Cold War history all again, where US priorities repeatedly privileged short-term gains over deeper democratic or human rights concerns, especially whenever Pakistan was involved. But first, let's look into who exactly are the BLA or the Balochistan Liberation Army. The BLA rose to prominence following the killing of Baloch governor Nawab Akbar Bukti in 2006, a pivotal movement that saw angry, disenfranchised Baloch youth channel their frustration into a sustained insurgency. Over the years, the BLA has carried out dozens of high-profile attacks. In 2004, Sui gas field attacks, 2008, Las Bela bombings, 2018, Chinese consulate attack in Karachi, 2019, Pearl Continental Hotel Gwadar attack, 2020, attacks on Frontier Corps. In 2024, BLA claimed over 300 attacks all over Pakistan. And the latest in line was the 2025 Jafar Express hijacking. These incidents, combined with smaller scale sabotage, bombings, and assassinations, defined the BLA's campaign as highly lethal but also explicitly political. A fight not merely against the Pakistani state but against perceived global and local exploitation. To understand the deep roots of the fight, we must look at Balochistan's history of repression. International human rights groups like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the UN Working Group on Enforced or Involuntary Disappearances have highlighted hundreds of cases of enforced disappearances of activists, journalists, and students, with families waiting for years, sometimes decades, for answers. Mass graves periodically uncovered near military camps, forensics analysis rarely released to the public. Extrajudicial killings targeting suspected separatists often reported with little investigation. Collective punishment in villages accused of supporting rebels, including destruction of water wells and livestock, leaving entire communities without basic resources. Notable is the 2014 killing of Baloch journalist Irshad Mastoi, strongly condemned by press freedom groups but followed by silence from both the US and the EU. In 2019, local authorities forcibly shut down Baloch protest camps in Quetta and Karachi, arresting dozens and sparking outrage from families yet receiving only muted international criticism. The United States has historically avoided direct condemnation, prioritizing its alliance with Pakistan over pressure for reform. But are the BLA liberation fighters or terrorists? This has been a topic of global debate for far too long. Let's break it down. While the UN defines terrorism as violence against civilians for political ends, the Balochistan Liberation Army or BLA complicates this. The BLA primarily targets military, police, or infrastructure, framing their actions as resistance to illegal occupation of their land. Though civilian casualties have occurred, international law recognizes armed resistance in severe violation causes, for example, Eritrean People's Liberation Front. However, geopolitics often dictates who is labeled a terrorist. Kurdish groups are praised while Baloch insurgents using similar tactics are condemned, a selective enforcement noted by both Pakistani and Western observers. But why is the US suddenly focusing on Balochistan? The answer lies largely in China's growing dominance. The $62 billion China-Pakistan Economic Corridor or CPEC, part of Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative, has transformed Balochistan. Once a sleepy fishing town, Gwadar Port is now a strategic deep water hub for Chinese exports. Copper and gold mines have also become a main problem here. Sites like Sendak and Reko produce vast wealth, but most profits exit the region. Independent audits found under 10% of resource revenue reaches Balochistan locals. Chinese-built infrastructure traverses key BLA strongholds guarded by thousands of Pakistani and private Chinese security personnel. Local pushback is also pervasive. Rallies against foreign occupation, sabotage of pipelines, and growing calls for resource sovereignty. The US and EU, watching Beijing's rise, see Balochistan as crucial not for its suffering of people but as leverage in the broader contest with China, a fact not lost on either activists or Pakistani state. Recent US-India tensions, Trump's multiple tariff hikes, criticism of India's Russian oil imports, and refusal to coordinate on regional energy security have left India with less influence over American moves in South Asia. The realignment favors Pakistan, long seen by US diplomats as a flexible partner, especially for goals requiring deniability or local intelligence. The Trump administration's praise for Pakistan's counter-terrorism role, frequent high-level visits, and fast-tracking of military aid all underscore this. Indian security chiefs warn of the risks. They say that, and I quote, "If Washington moves further towards Islamabad, we will lose our regional bulwark against both terrorism and strategic encirclement by China." India's attempts to raise human rights abuses in Balochistan at the UN have gained little traction, as US support for Pakistan has grown. The shift is also reflected in intelligence sharing. India's raw reports on Chinese resources projects were ignored, while Pakistan's ISI briefs are now the main basis for US regional decisions. Pakistan has historically been used as America's go-to proxy. Pakistan's use by the US for dirty work in Asia is decades old. In the 1980s, Islamabad funneled billions in CIA funds to Afghan Mujahideen fighting Soviets. In 2000s, it supported drone strikes, then compensated anti-Taliban operations with increased domestic crackdowns. Former Pakistan PM Nawaz Sharif openly acknowledged that Pakistan has always been Washington's workshop for difficult operations in the region. Pakistan General Munir, addressing the National Assembly last year, put it even more bluntly, and I quote, "We do what others cannot do, but every favor comes with a price." During this short-lived clash with India earlier this year, Pakistan's Defense Minister also reiterated the same, and I quote, "Pakistan has been doing the West's dirty work for decades." Let's look at some examples of this quote-unquote dirty work. Operation Midnight Jackal in 1989. US-backed ISI planned to unseat the government of Benazir Bhutto for being, quote, too independent. CIA drones launched sites from 2004 to 15, dozens of strikes aimed at Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and suspected BLA camps, with US operators working from secret Pakistan bases. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa crackdowns of 2008 to 2014. Joint operations led to thousands of Baloch and Pashtun deaths, many unrecorded and later revealed by whistleblowers. Pakistani officials privately praised the pragmatic partnership, but admit its cost. International cover for domestic operations, but also less scrutiny of our own abuses, is what they say. Meanwhile, even humanitarian aid to Balochistan is often blocked on grounds of potential terror support, making recovery from both violence and underdevelopment far more difficult for ordinary families. The BLA stands apart from radical Islamist groups, defining its politics as secular and anti-extremist. Yet the state strategy has often lumped together BLA and jihadist outfits like Lashkar-e-Jhangvi or TTP. This frame is used to justify sweeping crackdowns, and international observers note the confusion fosters a justification for foreign terror listing even when operational realities differ fundamentally. The US listing triggers automatic asset freezes, travel bans, and limits on material and financial support for BLA-linked entities. While direct diplomatic engagement with Baloch activists in exile was rare before, it is now nearly impossible. Diaspora groups in the UK, Sweden, and the US report increased surveillance and pressure, with many fearing the criminalization of speech and political advocacy around human rights in Balochistan. The Balochistan conflict now stands at the nexus of China's Belt and Road ambitions, Pakistan's international security strategy, and America's efforts to remain a regional counterbalance to Beijing. The US listing of the BLA as a terrorist organization is as much about appeasing Pakistan and checking China's influence as it is about fighting violent extremism. With India sidelined in the region, Balochistan's fate is increasingly decided not by its own people, but by the priorities of outside powers. But what will the terror designation actually do? From an analytical standpoint, this decision risks pushing the Baloch insurgency further underground, reducing prospects for genuine dialogue or reform, and emboldening Pakistan's military to treat all opposition, armed or not, as terrorist activity. Human rights organizations warn this could lead to new waves of disappearances, torture, and repression, while silencing critical voices even in international spaces. Meanwhile, by prioritizing transactional alliances, the US risks undermining its credibility on human rights and self-determination. This may have ripple effects. Groups in other conflict zones will watch how America chooses between principle and expedience, and local populations may turn to more radical reforms of opposition or peaceful avenues close. For India, the path forward is deeply challenging. Bogged out and watching alliance shift, it must recalibrate its regional strategy to protect its interests, human rights advocacy, and resource security. For the Baloch, this chapter likely means greater hardship, more intense military operations, less international sympathy, and a steeper climb towards any dream of autonomy or even justice. As America redraws the lines, the world must ask, are we content to define terrorism by expedience? Will we hear only the voices that suit our interests, or listen to the anguished calls for justice and autonomy echoing through Balochistan's hills? We will keep following this crucial story, tracking not just the headlines, but the lives and histories that shape the fight for freedom, fairness, and a future beyond violence. I am Gunjan Handa for the Asian Chronicle.